It's your girl Miracle Sims, and you are listening to God, Sex, and Love, your daily dose of inspiration and juice. It is July the 26th, 2021, and today the topic is a peek at the parables. I hope you all had a wonderful weekend. Mine went pretty good. I mean, I had a lot of time to reflect on some different stuff and whatnot, so not sure if that was good or not. But yeah, overall the weekend was fine. I guess not too much to report other than you may notice a change of scenery. So we finally made somewhat of a transition into moving my studio. I just put it like that. And so that's why I'm not in Studio A or Studio B or even the green room or anything like that. So far so good. We'll see, how it all goes. I was going to record in the she shed this morning, but for whatever reason, I was super uncomfortable in there. So I don't know what that's all about, but it's like I was super uncomfortable in there. And then at some point, after I did my prayer meditation, I heard drops like it was about to rain, and so I just decided to go ahead and just come back in the house. And so here I am. But anywho, I guess I'll go ahead and get into the juice this morning. So what led me to this topic, a peek in the parables, or at the parables? Before I made the transition back inside, control came into my mind, the word control. And as I started to look up that, eventually I came across, I think then another phrase came into my mind. It was the phrase, ye of little faith. That came into my mind. And so, upon looking that up, the verse Mark 11:22 stood out to me. And that says, "And Jesus answered them, have faith in God." So I felt the need to go deeper and whatnot. And so I ended up reading Mark 11:22 through 33. So that is going to be in the Go Deeper section for today. I won't read the whole thing right now. Basically, it's talking about the cursed fig tree and, the people or the Pharisees, whatever the case is, asking, Jesus about what authority, is he doing things or doing the miracles and whatnot that he was doing. And he counteracted their question by asking them, to, I guess, answer a question about the baptism of John. And the interesting thing is, I really liked how, when I read the answer or read, the response, on one hand, it made Jesus seem very petty, or that's just a way that we would describe to be petty, or at least between me and my friends. But I just thought it was interesting too, maybe he didn't say it in a snippy way, but again, y'all know that me and comedy and all that stuff. So, I just found it to be very interesting, the fact that he turned it back around on them, asked them to answer a question. They didn't want to answer the question. They were just pretty much like, we can't tell, or whatever the case is. And then he was like, well, basically, he said, neither do I tell you by what authority I do these things. So it just was like, I found that to be interesting this morning. So that led me to keep going. So I ended up reading Mark 12 in its entirety, and I'm just going to share with you guys the verses that stood out to me. So the first set of verses I would say was about the husbandman, the Lord, and the vineyard. In verse 1, I'm just going to paraphrase it a bit. It says, a certain man planted a vineyard, set a hedge digged, and again I'm paraphrasing here. So he planted the vineyard, he set a hedge, he digged a place for the wine fat, he built a tower, and then it said here that he let it out to the husbandman. Now, I wanted to go deeper on some of these words and things like that, just to kind of get a better idea of like the verbiage of the day. Because, for example, like wine fat, that doesn't mean much to me, right now. And I know that's going to sound interesting because, again, because I have the whole wine business and whatnot. But still, I've been very clear that I'm a wine amateur. So, but yeah, so things like that I wanted to kind of look up just to get a better, idea and perspective of the verbiage he was using and whatnot, and maybe even additional meanings. I did not do that this morning, not yet, but maybe that could be something that we all go deeper about today. But yeah, so that's one thing. And so it said that he let it out to the husbandman. And then basically, paraphrasing again the story a little bit more, it said basically like every time he sent like a servant or someone to go and, receive some of the fruit, the husbandman would either beat them or he'd kill them, even to the point where when the man sent his own son, they did the same. So, one of the verses that stood out to me the most in this was verse 9. It says, "What shall therefore the Lord of the vineyard do? He will come and destroy the husbandman and will give the vineyard unto others." So, and that could mean a lot of things, y'all. That could mean a whole lot of things, but it could be a representation of just Earth in general. It could be a representation of America. It could represent a lot of stuff if you really, really think about it. But it's interesting that these individuals in this parable, received. Basically, they received land. They received something. To say something. They received something that they didn't work for. They didn't create. They didn't. It was given to them, from what I'm understanding. Now, it didn't say rent or nothing like that, so it didn't seem like they even paid anything. I don't know what let means back in those days, because it said let it out to the husbandman. So maybe that meant rent or something like that. That's another reason why I wanted to go deeper on some of the word choices and whatnot, just to get a better understanding again. But from the top of my head, it seems as if the husbandman received something that they did not work for, they did not create, and was given pretty much authority over this situation. And all, that person who did all the work was looking for some fruit from it, and but instead of giving fruit, they, like I said, beat servants, killed some servants so many times, like over and over again. From what I'm understanding about the description here, was over and over again, to the point where the person sent their son. Like, surely they'll acknowledge and give some the authority of my son, but they even killed him apparently. So it's very interesting how we can put this all together in those days, because clearly it goes on to say in Mark 12 that the Pharisees and Sadducees, whoever at that time knew exactly that they were talking about them, which is interesting, because then again, if you think about it, this is before the crucifixion. So but anyway, y'all can go deeper about that. But anyway, but yeah, just very interesting to reflect on today. So that was one of the first things that stood out to me. Then verse 10 and 11 stood out. It says, the stone which the builders rejected is become the head of the corner. This was the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes. Now, again, I feel like this is a biblical description or whatnot. So maybe some of you all know the whole thing about the cornerstone. Maybe some don't. What I've heard about it, because again, I didn't research it again this morning to get confirmation or whatnot. But what I heard about it is that the cornerstone is like the strongest or something like that of when you're building. Something like that, because it's like both sides are like how can I say it, Lord? Like both sides, like when you have corner or something like that, it's like both sides are leaning on that one or something like that. I don't know, y'all. We got to go deeper about that. Look up, in building terms what it means and whatnot. But apparently it's an important part of building. It's an important part of the building process, the cornerstone. So that's one thing. And then also the fact that it was a question. So that second part there says, thus was the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes. And I have a question mark. At the end of the day, I think what I was just reflecting on all of this, it just kind of gives me the understanding that there's just things that are beyond our knowledge, right? And things that God is doing that is more than we probably can even understand or whatnot. They were trying to trap him up by asking him all these different types of questions and whatnot, but it's like, well, he knew how to handle it. One, he wasn't, shying away from their questions and whatnot. But at the same time, too, again, it just was kind of showing me that we're limited, right? We're limited in our thinking and everything like that. But hey, here goes some more Bible for you. So then verse 16 and 17 stood out to me. And it was talking about Caesar and everything like that, because they were trying to trap him in one of those things. They was like, oh, well, should we pay taxes or something like that? They were trying to ask him. And so in these verses it says, whose is the image and subscription? They said unto him, Caesar's. And Jesus answering said unto them, render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. That's really profound, like a way to think about the whole situation, because again, we get so consumed and overwhelmed with money. We get consumed and overwhelmed with like the things of this world, and at the end of the day, at least according to the Bible, it's like it's not that deep, but kinda. And I guess it puts the focus, at least that verse for me, it kind of puts this focus on, I'm not saying how much concern we should give certain stuff, but again, kind of, you know what I mean? Acknowledging that bills and all these things are important things that's going on in this world, but should that I'm gonna keep going. Let me see. Verse 24 stood out to me, and it says, do ye not therefore err, because ye know not the scripture, neither the power of God. They were trying to trap him up again, talking about when somebody dies, whose wife is it, X, Y, and Z, because of the whole thing about the brothers have to marry the wife or whatever case is, and so whose wife is she's going to be when they resurrect the X, Y, and Z. In verse 27, He is not the Lord of the dead, but the God of the living. Ye therefore do greatly err. So, yeah, y'all. I mean, hey, I'm just sharing what stood out to me this morning and whatnot. Let me leave you guys with this last couple of verses that stood out to me. It was verses 29 and then verse 30. I think we all kind of heard the whole, love your neighbor as yourself. I feel like we hear that more so than anything. So, again, verse 29 and 30 just really stood out to me this morning. And I think it just, again, puts a perspective on where our focus and whatnot should be. Verse 29 says, the first of all commandments is, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord, and thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind, and with all thy strength. That is the first commandment. So, yeah, that's a lot to let marinate on today. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like I've talked about this in the past, at least not during the juice, but like a long time ago. Those of you that follow me on YouTube or whatever, y'all probably way back in the day, back when I was doing the Hopeful Romantic, or I was doing like Let That Marinate or whatever I was doing. But anyway, the whole thing is like, if we do this one commandment here, right, then it's like all other issues and whatnot would be null and void. You know what I'm saying? Because if we love God, then we would, and the second thing, obviously they said after, right, he said right after that was to love our neighbors, X, Y, Z. But if we first love God, right, then we would. These are just things that would come along with loving God. I don't know. Like I said, it's just something to go deeper about today, y'all. That right there really, really stood out this morning, at least that part. So I hope that you guys let that marinate on your hearts, souls, and minds as well. Now, interestingly enough, I'm going to kind of stop right there in regards to the parables, but obviously they went on a little bit more than that. I'm just sharing the ones that stood out to me, but by all means, check out the entirety of Mark 12 if you want to really go deeper about that. But what I was going to say is, interestingly enough, the Bible verse of today is kind of a reiteration of, I guess, what I was talking about Saturday, or at least at some point last week, as well as, again, I feel like a good way to round up this juice this morning is Hebrews 13 and 8. It says, Jesus Christ, the same yesterday and today and forever. Friends, I hope you all enjoyed this juice this morning. Thank you so much for listening to God, Sex, and Love, your daily dose of inspiration and juice. I pray you guys can go forth and have a wonderful day, and I look forward to talking to you all tomorrow with the Lord's will. Bye-bye.
There's no time to get my nails done. Oh, I know. I went to unwindselfcare.com and got my 100% nail polish strips. Thanks, Unwind Self Care.